Awesome. Let's go ahead and kick things off. So I'm super excited for today's Lunch and Learn. We have some amazing guests. We have, of course, Jenny Brandon, as we're going to be going over her piece Daydreams for solo clarinet. And we also have Richard Cook, who was the commissioner of Daydreams, which is also very exciting. And for us as the ICA Enthusiast Committee, it's really awesome to see so many people being enthusiastic about clarinet. And we want to start off with having Jenny and Richard actually talk a little bit about the commissioning process and hopefully for my own selfish reasons, get you all excited about maybe commissioning some composers to write some awesome stuff for the clarinet like Jenny and Richard did. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to you guys if you want to kind of start talking about how that process worked and what that looked like.
Sure. Well, hi everybody. It's great to see you all today. This is exciting. Yeah, so I'll jump in real quick, Richard, and then you jump in and we'll just sort of talk about it.
Okay.
I think it was post-pandemic that you had reached out to me about writing a piece. But it was specifically because during the pandemic, you had been working on the chansons piece.
Yes.
And you were looking for repertoire and kind of like looking for repertoire that was accessible but that was interesting to play, and thought, well, I played her piece and I liked it, why not just reach out about commissioning a new work? And so you had reached out to me. We'd not met before, and we had such a lovely conversation about the idea of writing a piece that was interesting and fun and colorful and told a story, but was accessible to a large variety of folks that weren't necessarily like, not necessarily professional, like, playing, in orchestras or things like that, that was just things that people could play, but also a pedagogical approach. Um, yeah. So Richard, go ahead. I'll let you jump in and feel,
Yeah.
yeah.
Jenny, that's absolutely correct. Um, I have been lucky enough in my life to have been a donor to the arts for quite a period of time. And during COVID and after, it occurred to me that one of the things I could do is try and take on some projects that provided funding directly to artists. So other musicians, professional musicians, funding directly to composers who are often forgotten in the mix. And I was playing this work with my teacher of Jenny's, and I looked her up on the internet, and I just sent her a message, and everything flowed out of that. Uh, Jenny, you mentioned the desire for the piece. We talked a little bit before the commission started about the brief, and the brief was basically a piece for I'll call it intermediate avocational clarinetist,
Hmm.
which is basically what I am. You know, I take on some more challenging work, but I'm avocational. I'm not a professional, and I wanted a piece that clarinetists of all ages could play, maybe in a studio recital. Maybe they could play the piece uh, without having to rehearse with an accompanist, first of all. Because a lot of times I'm asked to, play in my teacher's recitals, and you just don't have time to put things together with an accompanist. So the solo element of the piece was the first thing. The second thing is I wanted a piece that had some polyrhythmic elements, so some time signature changes, because I was at a stage with my clarinet choir where all of us, and some of the players are quite advanced, but all of us struggled from multiple time changes. So we thought this would be a nice thing to incorporate. I wanted a piece that had some slightly more challenging key signatures. And that's why you see those key signatures. I mean, in theory, the entire piece could have been written in C major. Um, matter of fact, there was Jenny, if I could tell this story quickly, there was a funny moment where I got the part and I said, wow, Jenny, this is really nice, but the key signature is really a little
Oh
off
yeah.
for the fingering. And she said, oh my God, I forgot to transpose it.
I forgot to
It was supposed to be in C major. I said,
surprise.
no, no, leave it as is. And you'll notice when you work on this piece, and Josh, I know you're going to discuss it. There are some really awkward little fingering things where you have to do some switcheroos, as I call them. So that was an element of the piece. I wanted a piece that had built on some of the what I find really admirable elements of the clarinet, the ability to trill, the arpeggios, and legato. But I asked Jenny if she could extend the legato over the break. So frequently you will get these legato lines in the piece and these large intervals that go over the break. And that's all intentional. It's designed very cleverly. Jenny, thank you again. To give us a chance to practice these elements in our playing. So that was the process. Since working with Jenny for the first time, I have another piece, commission. I didn't write it, but a composer friend of mine wrote it. It's being premiered next month in Manchester, England, at the Anthony Burgess Society. It's 8 songs for clarinet, piano, and soprano. So a
Wow.
little chamber music piece. And then I've come back to Jenny and asked if she would do a piece for our local Edmonton Clarinet Choir. So anybody can commission music. That's the point I want to get across. And even though it's often forgotten, you should at least, I mean, Jenny's a very flexible composer, and it was an absolute joy to work with her, and the things she came up with were amazing. So thank you very much.
Well, and what a joy to work with you, and I think that that's the beauty of the collaboration between composer and performer. So, if you all are thinking, wow, I'd really love to commission a piece from a composer, I'd love to work with someone, reach out, work with the composer because it was so valuable what Richard gave me for feedback because we wanted this piece to be an accessible piece. And so that collaboration is
Mhm.
key. It's key. So yeah, I say reach out to composers. We love new projects and it's fun to collaborate with a performer. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that is such a great message of, yeah, like anybody can just reach out to one of these composers and say, can I commission something? And the worst thing that'll happen is they'll say no, or they'll say like, I could get you in the schedule like 10 years from now.
Right.
But yeah, reach out. Absolutely. That's really awesome and such a cool story. I also was particularly looking forward to this kind of part of the conversation because I suspected there was somebody to blame for all the tricky stuff in here.
Richard asked
And
for it, so yeah.
as I've been learning it, like I can really feel the like pedagogical nature of it, where like when you said crossing the break with legato, I'm like, yep, that's definitely something that you have to figure out how to do on this. And I'm working on performing this piece. I'm going to be doing a recital in the fall with the theme of kind of
Oh.
like these pieces that I've taught many times but have never actually performed myself. And this is one that I love to use for pedagogical purposes for all of those things that you said. So thanks, Richard, for requesting this. Thanks, Jenny, for making something really cool. It's fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and up next, Jenny, if you want to kind of talk us through the piece and kind of guide us through sort of your vision of it and how it goes.
Sure. So the piece, obviously, it's in 4 movements and inspired by Richard's stories. So, if you've read the program notes, you can see like, we had these great conversations. The thing that I love, the great story, Richard, that you had skated with Disney on ice for 4 years in the early 80s, which just like blew my mind. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And we talked about like his love for like bel canto style singing and nature and walking. And so I started to form this story idea around having, because the fun thing, right, with writing a solo repertoire like this is that you get to tell a story and you get to shape this story in these individual movements, right? Like each one is a character, right? And so I wanted to find those characters from the inspiring stories that Richard had told me in our conversations. And so the nature idea of walking, finding that sort of meditative space. And I thought, oh, like this labyrinth idea is really cool. If you think about a labyrinth, you walk into the labyrinth, walk through, and you walk back out, right? And so I play with that in the first movement where we go into the labyrinth, we walk through, and then at letter G, we walk back out of it again with that interval rather than going up like it does at the beginning, goes down. So I play with that idea of like the turning around and coming back out idea. So that's sort of a little direction for that movement. Um, and I'm sure we'll dig a little more into it as we go through it. The figure skater inspired by Richard's skating with Disney on Ice. Um, it's funny. It's supposed to be funny, right? Like there's the beautiful skater skating. I'm wonderful. I look at me on the ice. And then the showing off spin right before letter B is supposed to be funny. Like you could do that for like 30 seconds and your audience is like getting more like uncomfortable and then laughing, being like, okay, this is actually really funny. And then the skater falls, right? At letter C, all of this bravado and falls, and then eventually gets back up triumphantly to the end. So there's a character, right? We're creating these characters in these movements. Um, and then in the singer bel canto jazz, my background is as a singer as well. So, this idea of like singing and, the soprano, that holds the note and kind of floats and comes down off of it. I wanted to play with that, but then there was this like jazz element in there that we were mixing in. And so it's almost, you've got like the bel canto singer who's exploring jazz and that sort of like conversation between the two styles in there is it's like having two characters, right? Having a conversation. So I feel like as a performer, you get to really play with like, here's the lyrical style, here's the jazz swing style, and then we're going to mix them together. So there's some challenge in creating those individual characters and allowing those characters to come back consistently, and then also develop as the movement goes on. And then that final movement, sleeping, dreaming of the day. So I imagine this whole thing is like happened through this day. We've walked, we've skated, we've sung, and then we're settling in. And there's some little elements that kind of sneak their way back in from other movements in there. But it's all of this sort of like as we fall asleep, right? The mind kind of starts to think again and then settles, and then maybe thinks again until we finally settle into my favorite thing that the clarinet can do, which is that niente at the very end, and you just disappear. So, trying to play with characters. Each movement has its own story that it's telling. I think that's a really fun thing that I love so much about writing solo music, but I also love listening when people are playing it because the idea is for you all to bring in your stories. Like, yes, Richard and I told these stories, right? This is Richard's story. This is the way I'm interpreting it. But you, as the performer, now you get to tell your version of that story. And I think that that is what's so much fun about solo music and about like programmatic character driven music. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's actually also, in addition to all the technical clarinet pedagogy in this, I also really love that as it is so programmatic. So students can really latch on to like, how do I convey the skater falling down and
Right.
those kinds of things. It's really, really fun to explore. Awesome. Let me go ahead and pull up the music here and let's start getting into some of the technicalities. This kind of the idea for this was get some of the background and then we can dive in and I can give some tips and tricks for learning it. We can get some insights from Jenni on kind of how she wanted things to go and all that fun stuff. We'll hopefully have some time for some questions at the end. And if anybody's feeling brave and you have your clarinet out and want to play some bits and get Jenni's feedback on it, by all means, that would be awesome. So the first thing that I want to talk about is there are two versions of this piece. I think it was after the recording with Jeremy that y'all updated some stuff, right?
Yeah, and it was minimal. I feel like the one of the biggest things was in the figure skater before
Yeah,
like
that's kind
E.
of my how you know which version you have
Yes,
is this run right before E. In the older version, there's an optional gliss, and then the newer version has the breath sforzando and not an
yeah,
optional gliss, right?
yeah. We
Cool.
changed because we thought, let's just make it a comfortable run. Like glissing is fine and it's fun, and if you're really feeling inspired, go for it. Like gliss away. But we thought, this makes it more accessible in a way. The idea too was like, you know, not to scare anybody off from not wanting to do it because they're like, ugh, glissing. So when Jeremy and I recorded it, we just decided let's just do that little shift in there. So yeah, so if you have the earlier version that has the gliss in it, let me know. I'll just send you the new version. So yeah.
Awesome. Speaking of Dr. Jeremy Reynolds, it's also very worth knowing that he has this recorded on an album with a very good professional recording, which is a fantastic reference recording to kind of get an idea of how the piece goes. Jenny, do you want to remind us the title and all the details so people can find that recording?
Sure. It's called Songs of Sea and Stone. I'll drop it in the chat here. Songs of Sea and Stone.
Perfect.
And you can find it on Spotify, you can find it on YouTube, Apple, wherever you get your streaming stuff. Yeah, you can find it there. You'll find the movements, and Jeremy did a beautiful, beautiful job with the recording. So it's a great reference recording for sure.
Yeah. And there's also a whole bunch of other pieces by Jenny on that he recorded too, which are all really fantastic and really, really fun. Um, awesome. So getting started with this first movement, looking at some of the kind of technical stuff. Right off the bat, we get that smooth legato crossing the break, which is fantastic, and those mixed meters. This is all pretty straightforward, I think, and especially these first four measures. Personally, I think it works pretty well to kind of feel the eighth note pulse because it's at that slower tempo. So that will help you to keep your eighth notes, your quarter notes, everything kind of the right proportion to each other. One overall thing that Jenny and I talked about a bit that I think is really fun is it's all very flexible, very open into interpretation. This kind of with freedom applies pretty much throughout, other than in the figure skater where it says rhythmically precise. So having that kind of sense of you can really push and pull and express the things that feel right to you, which I also think is a great kind of pedagogical standpoint to this piece and kind of the accessibility of the piece, where there are some passages that at a fast tempo get pretty challenging and are a great kind of test and challenge to develop your technique. But at the same time, they sound really, really good a bit under tempo or a bit on the slower side too. So I think it works fantastic. I don't know, Jenny, did you kind of have that as an intention as you were going when you were putting in tempo markings of like, this is the goal tempo, but I like, were you writing it in a way that it worked well at a slower tempo too intentionally?
For sure. I mean, we were kind of joking too. Like, I'll tend to be like, here's an exact, tempo. Dotted quarter equals 54 with forward motion. Okay, great. So, like, I have an idea of tempo, but I also have an idea of this freedom of push and pull. As a singer, as a background as a singer, I I kind of feel that like conversationalness with everything that I write. So, yes, a little slower if it needs to. Awesome. Just shape it and make it your own. And that's the most important thing, I think, for something like this.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. Now, the first thing that I have a kind of a question mark about is this dotted slur. Do you want to talk to us about kind of what you mean with the dotted slur?
Yeah, the idea was sort of to keep pushing that energy through. So I could, there was sort of the debate, and sometimes I get into the weeds in this in my brain, where, I could have slurred the whole thing and then slurred it over into C all the way through measure 28. But I kind of wanted it to feel like we have a new idea that starts at C, but we don't necessarily want to break the energy that goes through it, right? So I didn't want you to go da 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 da, more of a da 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 idea. So it just kind of means almost like a no breath, like keep that energy moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I really like this marking actually, and I wish it was used more often because that is such a common thing that happens where we see the bar line, we see the line break, it's a crescendo, and we're like, oh, I'm going to crescendo to this long note. But so often the music goes on to the next thing. And I totally see what you mean, where this is a new enough idea that it could make sense to have a break. So it's great to have that clarity. Yeah.
And it's very much of a singer thing too. Like a lot of times as vocalists, especially in choir, I'll put that in my music, or when I was conducting choirs, I would do that to say, yes, we want to crescendo through. We're not breaking the energy, crescendo through. So it's just a reminder to think about the idea of energy and movement. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. One kind of technical performance note too here with these subito pianos. I think it's really important, and actually this crescendo going through the rest. We have to make sure that we really keep the resonance going through that. First, into the subito mezzo piano. If you kind of do any diminuendo here, and then you diminuendo into silence, then this won't feel like a subito mezzo piano. It'll feel like that's the dynamic that you were aiming for. So I think it's really important that we kind of keep that going. Maybe we could write in for ourselves like no diminuendo. Wow, pardon my computer writing. We could give ourselves a no diminuendo there so we remember to sustain through that. And then this one, we want to kind of have that feeling of the crescendo continuing through the rest. So that might sound something like this. And actually, I'll play back starting here so that we can also hear this kind of no breath leading through there. So it has that kind of like driving forward and then suddenly soft. And Jenny, feel free to critique anything that wasn't the way you wanted it in anything like
That was that was fabulous. Everybody do that.
that. Awesome. So yeah, it gets us through the first page, and then getting into the second page. I am curious. I would love to hear your thoughts actually on this first line. We'll definitely talk about this trill and this kind of aleatory a little bit too. But on this first line, kind of what are you thinking in the story here, Jenny?
Um, so we get this like an echo. Like I think about dynamic as a character layer in my music as well. And so like we're sort of speaking this line, the freely without hurry, right? That first mezzo piano there. Um, and then we speak it again, but a little quieter. It's almost reflective. Like I think about since we're in the labyrinth and we're walking and pondering and reflecting that this is sort of a I had this thought. Now I'm going to sit back and think a little bit more about it. So that's the idea there. I think about sort of the internal conversations we have with ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious with the labyrinth idea too. I kind of think of a labyrinth as like it's a little ominous where you feel like you might be getting lost and not know where you're going. But I also have the sensation that you're thinking of like maybe a more like this intentionally spiral labyrinth where you just go to the middle and then go back out.
Yeah. Not the scary labyrinths where we go into like Middle Earth or something like that. No, this is definitely the spiral ones, like where those beautiful ones that you'll see painted, or maybe they make them out of rocks and then you walk in and you walk out. So the contemplative ones, not the scary ones.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's actually like very helpful for my interpretation of it. Because I was definitely like, this doesn't really feel like a scary labyrinth, but like it
Yeah.
surely is. No, it's a peaceful labyrinth. Yeah,
And as
I love
Jessica said, not the David Bowie one. No.
it. Perfect, perfect. Yeah, so there's kind of that introspection and kind of contemplation. And yeah, the kind of thinking about where it's coming from too, where this is very active and maybe we start like, maybe we're almost childlike kind of running through it at this moment and then we kind of come back to like, oh no, but this is very, very peaceful. I like that a lot.
Exactly.
Great. And then going on to this tricky stuff here. So this is a great pedagogical moment because we're crossing into the altissimo break. It's also a great opportunity to learn a good trill fingering that comes up very often. And there's a little bit of contemplation you have to do as a performer for like how you're going to make the technique of this work. So for this C to D, well actually first let me talk about the aleatory part of it. This is fantastic too, where this is something in the minimal composing I've done. I often do things like this as well because at the end of the day, when we're composing, we're just trying to create an effect. And sometimes trying to get that effect into ink on the page can be really challenging. And if you were to write this out, it would maybe be like a metric accelerando where you have like quarter notes or eighth notes, then triplets, then 16th notes, then sextuplets. And that gets like very overwhelming to look at for the effect of starting slowly and then gradually getting faster. Especially if you aren't like trying to get multiple voices to line up in a complicated and nuanced way. So I love this marking. And I think as the performer, we should first of all see these things and instead of being like, well, I've never seen music like this, how does it work? Instead be grateful that it doesn't look like how it would look when it's written out. And then just realize the effect that we're going for. And there's always like such good instructions here. Yeah, just start slowly alternating between these, gradually increase, moving into the trill. So that's definitely gives me more peace of mind to just see that rather than all the scary rhythms on the page. Now for actually executing it on the clarinet, the first consideration or the first thing to know is the trill fingering from C to D. There's several ones that you can do. My personal favorite is the normal thumb and register key high C, and then the second to the top of the trill keys. That one generally speaks the most in tune for me. You can also do this G sharp key, and if you are feeling really crazy, you could just take the thumb off. But both of those are less in tune for me than the second to the top trill key. The challenge with this, though, is the starting slowly, because that trill fingering isn't super stable, and it's very easy to get this kind of that almost multiphonic that happens on the trill fingering. So you have two options, and both are good pedagogical things to work out. The first option is do the first few with the normal high D fingering, and then transition to the trill fingering, and really work on making those sound the same. The other option is really work on your voicing to be able to do the trill fingering with good sound. So I'll demonstrate both of those, and hopefully I'm warmed up enough that I can get the trill fingering to work well. So this is just the trill fingering the whole time. And then this is starting with the normal fingering and then transitioning to the trill fingering. So that's the kind of different effect that you're going to get from that. And you can do both of them better, where you can make a smoother transition in the pitch between the normal fingering and the trill fingering, and work out the voicing to get the trill fingering to go better. Jenny, did you have any opinions or preferences between those two options?
I think they're both great. I feel like whatever, it's, yeah, good pedagogically, like to play with and see what feels most comfortable. But no, I think they're both great options. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And it's very, very subtle. I'm going to try, my intention for when I perform this piece is to try doing the trill fingering the whole time, because I like that kind of a little bit more homogeneous tone and tuning. But we'll see on the day of how the reeds are feeling. Let's see. And then here's this moment at G where we have kind of similar to the beginning where we have that ascending and then this time it's descending. Oh, I did have a question about this moment too. Let me see if I can remember what it was. The yeah, back at the beginning, the tempo is also yes, that's what it was. So at the beginning, we have it at like 48 for this kind of opening theme, and I'm not sure in the recording. I can't remember if the tempo is 72 here or if it goes back to the slower speed. And I think as I've played with it, this part feels really logical to be a little bit slower. And then this part I really want to be faster, but there's definitely no accelerando marked or any tempo changes there. So you're thinking like it should be 72 the whole time through this, right?
I think so. I mean, and again, there could be a little bit of push and pull, but to me, this is sort of the well, and we get to the with joy, right? In the next line there. To me, this is sort of the we've gone on this journey, we've come through, we've contemplated things, and now we're turning around, coming back. Like this is what I consider like the development of the story, or like we're taking the same theme or the same motivical idea, and now it's developed in this way that we've gone somewhere. We've become a different person, right? And so yeah, so I like that kind of movement forward, this sort of joyful feel of like we've arrived. We become different on our journey. So yeah, I think more movement here and a little more. I'm not saying you can't play a little push and pull, but like a little bit more direct. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes perfect sense too with the story because when I was thinking scary labyrinth, like turning around at the center felt like, oh man, I'm lost and like
Oh,
yeah, I'm really in trouble now. But yeah, now that it's kind of like I've grown, I've had this contemplative moment. Yeah, I like that a lot. This is also another subito mezzo piano to make sure like keep that sound up. It's very tempting to diminuendo here, but like keep the support. So then this echo is kind of has that reflective feel too. Yeah, I like it.
yeah, it's that echo idea from the top of the page again, that idea of we speak it and then we think about it and then we crescendo and then we're joyful. So yeah, it's that idea of contemplating, thoughtful, exactly.
Perfect. Yeah, this is great. Um, this is also totally why I selfishly did this because when we have living composers to work with, it's so nice to actually know what their interpretation was. Whereas there's actually a couple other pieces on the recital where I'm sort of like, I mean, they wrote this, but I don't know what that means. And yeah, so it's fantastic to get to work with living composers always. Awesome. We should go on to the second movement, and I should move a little bit faster so we have time for questions. Speaking of moving faster, this opening can be really tricky at the written tempo. This is a great opportunity to really lean into the push and pull, and if you want to take things a little bit slower is great. This is also one of those pedagogically that's not a super happy key for us. So there's a lot of good finger stuff to work out, which is fantastic. The other thing that I want to highlight with this too, beyond the technical stuff, is musically, these dynamics go a little bit different than kind of what feels intuitive, and I think that's part of the point and creates the effect, where to me, normally in 3/4, like beat one is the most emphasized, and without the dynamic markings, I would kind of intuitively want to do something like but I think it's really important and a really cool effect where the emphasis is kind of shifted. And to me, it's giving this idea of kind of like a stationary observer seeing the ice skater kind of like flying by. And it almost gives that Doppler effect of. Which is really fun. Yeah, Jenny, do you want to talk to that at all?
I like the Doppler effect. I'm going to add that in there. That's pretty good, right, Richard? That's good. I think that's perfect. The idea is it's this da 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 da. It's very just I think if you don't think about it too much, and sometimes like again, I'll put a bunch of dynamic markings, but it's about effect. And so like if you don't think about it too much, you just kind of find that flow, you'll find it. Like you'll find it. You'll find that natural kind of like flow with it. But that's the idea, Doppler effect. I love it.
Nice. This also works very well pedagogically because this is a common issue where by default on the instrument, especially the second and third measure, the higher register wants to sound louder. So it's very easy to get that kind of whatever the notes are. But we kind of get that break in the registers. So by having the dynamics like this, it also trains us to like keep the support into the lower notes. Which is also a great kind of pedagogical thing to be thinking about and working on. Oh yeah, and we get more of these dotted slurs too. That's kind of, yeah, this is all one motion, one idea. Yeah, that's fantastic. The way I could really see this being used, so often we get this kind of weird like staccatos under a slur. I don't think there's any of those in here. But as a wind player, every time I see staccatos under a slur, I'm always like, okay, separate with the tongue and don't tongue. Like, how does that work? And oftentimes it is kind of a phrasing marking, saying like the slur is showing the phrase. So I love this dotted slur. It's a great marking.
Yeah, and it just reminds us that like we're singing through it, and even though we've got this broken into three like note groupings of three, that's a little bit about the dynamics, and then the whole thing is your phrase. So it's just, yeah, it's all about intention and energy through it. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. A couple technical things for these trills. So this first trill will be G to A natural, trilling up, and then the trills stop on the fermata. So you'll trill for a fermata however long you want, and then land on the G and hold that for however long you want, theoretically a little bit shorter because it's a quarter note rather than a half note. Something sort of like that. And then this A flat trill with the flat, this is A flat trilling up to B flat. And if we try to do normal fingerings for that, it's really tricky to coordinate. So there's a nice trill fingering for that where you can play A flat and then wiggle just the first finger, and that will get you from A flat to B flat. Let me stand up so you can see. Rather than which gets a little clunky really fast. So that's some tips for those trills. This is that showing off longer than necessary, and I think you've kind of already made this clear, Jenny, but I just want to clarify while we're at it. You can do more swells than this, and
yeah.
can, really stretch it out as long as you want. Longer than necessary, in fact.
I think Jeremy hung out on it for a while on the recording. So be silly, be a character here, like show off, just show off. Yeah.
Excellent. And this one also, the trill stops on this last C, and then you hold the C and do that final crescendo. Yeah. So pretty much as long as your air can do it. Fantastic. There's one little thing that I like to do here that, actually, let me know, Jenny, if you don't like this idea. Here in 27, I kind of start slowing down a little bit into this to make this feel like not such a sudden start slowly and then a cello. So I'll play from here to kind of get the idea of that. I do something like this. Again with wrong notes. Do you like that? Is that acceptable?
Oh, I think that's great. That actually makes a lot of sense to just like pull it back slightly so that it doesn't feel like you just like pumped on the brakes there. So great. That's a great choice.
Cool. And then this moment is really cool. And this is one of those really great programmatic moments. This one I also kind of do a lot of diminuendo here to save room for this energy to kind of, most of these are kind of flourishes, right? This one I think about where like it's a little flourish, but it's like the little jump while you're getting momentum for the big jump. So not quite as much swell there is what I like, and then really come back, and then you can start slower on this, because the worst thing is if you get into this too fast and start this too fast, then you have no room to really get faster before it gets really out of control. And I kind of like that effect of gradually increasing that energy. Let me play this little bit as well, just so we can all kind of get it in our ears, and if you want it anyways different, Jenny. Yeah, I'll start at this odd tempo. And then a really long fermata, like super dramatic, where the audience is almost like, did they actually just fall apart? And then compose yourself. And then this rhythmically precise where you do bring it together. And then we'll talk about the sticky staccato in a second. But any thoughts on that, Jenny?
I think that's great. And I think like all of that sort of start slowly, fast accelerando, da 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 da, like it's all like they fall, they get up, they're like, I got this, I'm gonna show off again. Oh, nuts, I don't quite have my composure. Okay. And then the quarter note equals 94, the rhythmically precise. Then we're like, we're gonna step carefully, we're gonna do it right, we're gonna do it precisely. So there's like three characters in there of like trying to show off and then trying to not say, basically trying to save face. So I think what you did was great, Josh. Like, and just that playing with the tempos, go for it. You could start even slower if you want, you could go even faster. Like, yeah,
Nice.
just create that character. Yeah.
Awesome. And then sticky staccato, I love this kind of description. And I think it actually really helps with this marking, because this is another marking where it's like short and separated but full length, and it like feels like a contradiction. But when you add the text to it of, yeah, we want that kind of sticky feeling, maybe the most this marking's ever made sense to me, where like there's separation but it's good sustain, bum bum bum. So yeah, I think that's very clear. And then kind of the same idea presumably here, and this one's a little easier with the retardando, right?
Hmm. And you can almost like stick it like dum dum, like you're like unsticking something. Yeah, and just kind of really do that big like writ there and just kind of milk it for all it's worth. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. um yeah, I think that's. Oh yeah, there's just a little bit here. This is a very technical thing. This is actually surprisingly challenging, this kind of throat tone, crescendo, and then suddenly soft high note. And what makes this so challenging is the intuitively, to get the soft dynamic, we'll want to slow down the air. But if you slow down the air, you won't have enough air support to get the high C to come out, and you'll end up with this kind of unsatisfying ending that I've done in practice many, many times. And so you get something like, and then the C doesn't quite come out. So you have to remember, even as you're playing soft, keep the air really, really focused so that you have that. And then you can get that nice like little sparkle at the end, and have the dynamics and actually get the note out. So that's a good little tricky clarinet moment. One of those many things in playing that's just a little counterintuitive, where you have to be softer but with energy. Awesome. Going on to the bel canto jazz. This one is really fun with the kind of character contrasts. Oh yeah, we have to talk about the vocal melisma. Tell us about, what is a vocal melisma for us clarinetists?
So in singing, it's this free line, right? And it's just, if you've ever listened to opera, you hear a singer, they sort of do it like an, kind of idea. And so it's just this open sound, but there's a lot of freedom with it. So that's why there's no stems, but there's groupings of notes that that you could kind of like do da 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 dum. So each one you could maybe start it a little slower, come a little faster, a little slower, a little faster, and then it's like like a clarinet cadenza in that way. But I think there's a real, like, if you go listen to some, Italian arias or something like that, to hear the singers kind of like really um, sort of stretch these out in that way. So I think you can feel free to pull tempos in that. Again, lots of freedom. And even though, like I said, I've got that sort of straight crescendo, you could do a little crescendo, decrescendo on each little grouping, the first two groupings, and then really let it rip on that larger one that goes up to the D. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. There are also these little kind of slight hold fermatas, which I think also have that singing effect, right? Yeah, go ahead and talk about those a little bit, Jenny.
Yeah. So again, like in singing, like you have that soprano just, sort of just like hangs there for a minute, almost this beautiful spinning quality up there. And it's just like it's just held. And I just use a different fermata there just to kind of indicate a little bit more of a stay there. Like don't feel like you have to leave it. And you could even sort of fall off of it a little bit. Like if you hear a singer, hold something like, oh, kind of idea. I mean, it doesn't necessarily translate to clarinet in that way, but you could do something like that where it's very just sparkles a little longer. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I want to try that fall and see if that
Okay.
does translate to clarinet. Let's see. I don't know. Maybe what do you think?
Yeah, and I think you could even be more dramatic with it, like
Yeah.
da 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 da. Like you could even push and pull the tempo in that as well, in that run that goes up to it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Let me try also a little more dramatic with the fall while we're at it too. Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky to get that like vocal like quality on the clarinet. Yeah.
Yeah, and I say like if you're working on it, like go listen to some arias, go listen to some opera. It's just kind of fun to hear like what a soprano might do and play with it. Again, it's about shaping it to make it what is comfortable for you. So just because like you can listen to Jeremy play it, he'll do it one way. Josh will play it one way. Richard plays it one way. Like you find the space that makes you feel comfortable, knowing that there aren't really a set of rules with it. It's just about creating a character in this space, and it's your character to shape. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Let's see. There's so much fun stuff, but we're running out of time already, so I'm gonna skip ahead to some specific things. These octave leaps, that feels like a pedagogical moment for sure, which is great. They're really valuable. And then we get this B flat minor scale, which is really fun in our melisma. This is nice to know that these are more cadenza-like. I was kind of interpreting it in the vocal melisma. I think the like literal definition of a melisma is basically like you're singing one vowel but changing pitches on the same vowel or
Exactly.
syllable, right?
And it's really cadenza. I mean, if you want to think about melisma and translate for that for clarinet to cadenza, that's totally fine. I use that idea of a vocal melisma because of it being the vocal bel canto jazz piece. So, because I want you to think like a singer, like how would a singer sing this, And so that's the idea to draw in your singer personality here. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think, yeah, I think that works really well. Kind of that recitative kind of idea. Yeah, totally. And that makes it a little easier because I was trying to be like, well, it's only one syllable, so I have to like cram all the notes in really fast. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, this is great. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, and Tish was asking about slight vibrato, maybe like even on some of those like the held notes. Absolutely, yeah, Richard, exactly. Like that vibrato is what we're looking for in the singer, right? So a little, a little sparkly, warbly vibrato is great.
awesome. And then in this one, no matter what speed you play, unless you have a left pinky E flat key, there is a pinky switch or a slide or something that we have to deal with, and it happens around this D flat E flat. So starting at this D flat, probably by, no, actually for sure, we have to do left pinky D flat to get to the right pinky E flat, which puts us on left pinky C, and then right pinky D flat, and then you can't get from right pinky D flat to right pinky E flat could use left pinky E flat if you have a left pinky E flat. But instead what we can do is either on the C or on the D flat, do a pinky switch. So we're right pinky D flat, switch to left pinky D flat, and then up to right pinky E flat, which is also a great kind of pedagogical thing that comes up in music all over the place. So this is a great opportunity to tackle that. And it's nice that you can do it pretty much free of time and whatever timing you want. The left pinky C it could be a good place to switch to. So left D flat, right E flat, left C, right C, and then you're back to left D flat, right E flat. And since that's the start of the grouping, it might make sense to linger on that a little bit. I'll play this really slow so you can kind of hear it. I'm going to start back at this B flat, actually. And that would sound something like this. So you see that. Left pinky C, right pinky C. Helen asked about sliding. You could slide. Let me see where the slide would go for this. So the slide would be from right pinky E flat to right pinky C. And that slide can work really well too if you like sliding. Personally, I think pinky switches are like the more sophisticated approach where you can have a little bit more precision to it, because sliding is a little unreliable where you never know like how slippery are your fingers feeling, whereas the switch is just a little more reliable, but sliding from that E flat to C would also totally work there. So that's at least all we have time for in that one. Let's do a quick rundown of the last movement, and then we'll get to a couple questions, hopefully. The last movement, I kind of feel like it's the most straightforward, so there's not anything too major to tackle in this other than getting comfortable with your 5 flats. Luckily only for a short amount of time. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think there were any tricks in this one. I don't think I have anything marked in this one that I particularly wanted to hit. Anything in this one, Jenny, that you want to talk about?
I think the one thing is just the I talk about like the characters and like the motives in each of the movements sort of having this certain thing that we're bringing out. That slur over the tenuto notes there because it's the repeated notes. And so I didn't want it just to be like ta 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 ta, right? But I want this ta da 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 da, right? It's that intention idea again. So like as you're playing with that, like what I added like the legato soft tongue under there, like just to find that smoothness there. Yeah, just finding that smoothness with that. That there's weight and it's done because it's a repeated note, but don't think about it like, oh, we have to ta 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 ta. And maybe that's very obvious, but that's always something like I've gotten questions about that before. So I just thought I'd bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great one to highlight. Yeah. And the way I interpret this too is like we want to hear the repeated notes clearly, so it doesn't just sound like but there's a lot of that like forward direction where every single one of them leads to the next and eventually gets to that leap. So we have that good sustain through it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Tish is asking about demonstrating PP to niente soft.
Yeah, at the end.
Oh yeah, my favorite.
Yeah, I really like this ending too. This movement really captures that like sense of falling asleep where you're drifting off to sleep and all these thoughts pop up and you kind of follow those thoughts for a little while, but then you start drifting to sleep again. And this ending is really where it's like the thoughts just really start fading out. So this last little bit here, hopefully this will go okay, like sound okay over the computer. But yeah, we get that sneaky clarinet thing. Keep the embouchure support nice and strong. Don't let it get too fuzzy. Remember to keep like the air support going so that the sound stays resonating. But then we just get narrower and narrower and narrower, like the eyes closing and falling asleep. And my swamp cooler turned on and probably ruined it. But one of my favorite things is you can do the kind of like, who knows when you stopped playing? The audience doesn't know when you stopped playing. Maybe you don't even know when you stopped playing, but you just sell it like just keep imagining. There's probably pitch happening.
I like that. It's the intention, right? Like you just keep sitting there and everyone's like, it's still going. You're like, oh yeah, it is in my mind. That was beautiful. That
Exactly.
was great.
Yeah. That's also one of my favorite effects of the clarinet.
For sure.
Yeah, it's a good one. Awesome. Great. Well, we have like 3 minutes, but don't be shy if anybody has questions, or especially if anybody wants to give it a try. Do we have any brave people with your clarinets ready to go? I know some of you, I think, have been working on this piece somewhat recently. Does anybody first raise your hand if you want to try playing anything for Jenni? Going once, going twice. Yeah, great. Do you want to play or have a question?
Yeah, in the jazz singer in section E, uh, the piece really, we talked about this in class of how jazzy it should go. Uh, so I ended up doing something like this.
That was awesome. I loved it. That sounds great. Yeah, I like it. You
You
go
know, putting in a
go
little gliss.
go jazzy. I say if that like if there's a little like gliss stuff like that in there, perfect. I love that interpretation and adding stuff like that in there, I think is great because it's kind of, with jazz, it's always a little ad lib, right?
Hmm.
A little bit of sass gets added in there. So I think your instincts were perfect on that.
Yeah,
That's
definitely
great.
lots of sass. I love it.
Sass.
Yeah,
Sassy.
awesome. Um, yeah. Other questions? Anybody else want to try anything, or just any general questions that you want to know about this piece, or anything else about commissioning, or anything fun like that? Yeah, go for it, Richard.
Yes. Uh, well, thank you very much. I wish you'd been around when I was preparing this. Wow. Um, but one of the things, going back to your comments on the singer bel canto jazz, I totally agree, Gregory, with your approach there. And when the premiere was done on YouTube, I did a little variation on that, but I tried to swing it. And I'm not a swingy player. I am strictly by the note type of player. But this bel canto style was really important to me, and the singing. And you can, the advantage of it being a solo piece is you can get away with a few things that you couldn't do with an accompanist. And I think Josh mentioned this. That is the approach I took, and I learned that by listening to bel canto singers, the great Maria Callas and Joan Sutherland and Montserrat Caballé, and how these singers float these notes, and it's almost like a spinning treacly type thing. And I'm glad, Jenni, you mentioned vibrato. I think it was you who brought it up because for our English guests, I kind of grew up, I learned to play the clarinet in the British school. Frederick Thurston, Reginald Kell,
Mm.
these great players, and vibrato is very broadly used. In North America, for a while, it was considered absolutely no. Classic players did not use vibrato. The American style is very crisp. Um, but in the singer bel canto, if you have a little bit of vibrato, just experiment with it. But sometimes I get carried away, and there is a point when you're trying to introduce vibrato that you can do it too much, or you do it almost like a type of thing, and it starts to sound ugly. So if you find yourself doing that, just back off. but please use it. And I think we have at least one player from the UK, so I really hope you use your vibrato in this section. But Josh, very insightful, so thank you.
It's great.
Yeah, awesome. Richard, do you by chance know how to turn on the original sound for musicians on Zoom?
Oh, yeah. It didn't come across. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately.
No,
Go ahead
well,
and...
you know what? Don't worry. Don't worry about it.
Okay. I imagined a very like beautiful, very soprano vibrato. It was beautiful.
Yeah,
And I could
I'm
hear
sure
some
it
of the
was.
notes
Yeah.
pretty well, yeah.
Yeah, I've had problems with that. There is a YouTube recording of the premiere, and some of that comes through
Yes.
at that premiere. But just to tell you a funny story about working on the piece, again, I had in our dress rehearsal, I was playing, and it was the first time I played for Jenni, so I was super nervous and whatnot. And I said, "Oh my God, I blew the wrong notes in there." And she said, "Really?" You know, I didn't know. So move forward, forge forward. If there are wrong notes, make it part of the piece, own it.
Agree.
And this is a piece you can really own, and that's what I love about it, Jenni.
Yeah. No,
And I'm going to
true.
start studying it again because I want to play it this fall.
There we go.
And I want to
Awesome.
listen to you, Joss. I want to listen to your
Yeah, I'm
recital as
excited.
well.
Totally.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be fun. And I love that. We just got permission from a composer that wrong notes aren't the end of the world. So just keep the effect going, keep sharing how the music goes, and it doesn't matter if you miss a note here or there.
And it's all about character. That's what I think. Like some of the best performances I've heard were not the most precise, but they were absolutely colorful and beautiful. And like I think that that's the key as a performer. Like just go for it. Like lean into the good, lean into the wrong notes, and just make it your own. So that's yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
I saw that Jane had a question. Looks like.
yeah.
Yes. Right. I'm trying to phrase this properly. As a player, you study a piece, you really get into it. We join masterclasses and workshops like this, and we really sort of study the piece and, like you say, come up with our own characters. I haven't done this yet with your piece, Jenni, largely because it's just a little bit too hard for me. But I'll get there. So, you know, I'll keep picking it up every so often and go again, and I'll be inspired after today to give it another go. My question, though, is, as a listener, how do you, the musician, communicate the story, or do you only communicate it through playing it? And if you do, the listener will have to come up with their own story. Because I love hearing other people's stories, but I don't often create my own as a listener. And I just wondered what your thoughts were. If I was to perform this piece one day to an audience that didn't know it at all, I feel as if I should spend some time telling them the story.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm just interested in what other people think.
Yeah.
And you in particular.
I think talking to your audience is great. Like I think setting up the piece is a great way to connect with your audience. And especially with new music, even if it's not a new piece, even if it's a well-established repertoire piece, like I think I think there's a really great connection between performer and audience to say, this is the story I'm going to tell you today. And, you know, I'm going to paint a picture of walking, of a figure skater that's a little bit like too too confident, you know, of a singer who's exploring jazz. And then we finally have these dreams about this wonderful day that we had doing all of these things. And I think giving people like when I do like let's say I'll get up right before someone's going to perform a piece and I'm going to just speak for like 2 minutes and talk about the piece. I think about giving people like like I would say not necessarily a roadmap, but like things to listen for, so that when they hear them in the piece, they're like, "Oh yeah, she told us about that." oh, okay, now I know where we're in the piece. So I think that's a great way to connect with your audience, but also to give them sort of these like signposts was kind of the word I was looking for, of things to listen for. And it means that they're actively participating
Yeah.
while you're telling the story. So I think that's wonderful. Josh, I wonder you like you as a performer, like how you approach that as well with like new repertoire, any repertoire when you're playing it for an audience.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I do think there's an interesting point that you make, Jane, of like, maybe we should leave it up to the listener's imagination and see what stories they come up with, which can be kind of a cool thing to do as well. But when it's something that's as like clearly programmatic as this, I think it's nice to kind of share that story. And you can also just do it in program notes. And at the beginning of the piece, Jenny has some program notes written out that you can share with your audience, and that gives them a jumping off point at least to start digging into that story and start hearing that story for themselves. And I do also think that music is about community, and sometimes, especially in classical music, we kind of forget the idea that music is a communal thing, because it is so much I'm the performer, I stand on the stage and I play at you while you sit quietly in the dark. And I think that talking to the audience and letting them share in the story, and giving them some ideas to be imagining as they're listening, I think is a really great way to get a little more participation and build that community for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I think too.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Awesome.
And it's been great.
Yeah, this has been a ton of fun. Thanks so much to Jenny and Richard for being here and talking about this piece. It's been a great time. Thanks so much to Jessica for hosting us, and the ICA for doing these kinds of things. Oh, and very important, I should mention the ICA Enthusiast Committee. We're going to be doing our second annual Prelude to Clarinet Fest in Korea. I don't know if any of you are planning on being at Clarinet Fest in Korea, but if you are, you should get there a day or two early and attend the Prelude event as well. Or if you know anybody who's going to Clarinet Fest, tell them about the Prelude event, because we're going to be playing together. We're going to be doing some master classes, warm-ups, learning some good rhythm stuff, playing in some smaller groups and getting a little bit of chamber music skills, all kinds of really fun stuff. And if any of you are feeling super jealous that you're not going to be there, it's not too late to book your tickets and come to Korea. Jessica put the link in the chat to the information about the Prelude. But yeah, again, thanks so much, Jenny. Thanks to the ICA. Yeah. Thanks to Richard. This has been fun.
Thank you so much for the great interpretation of this. And everybody, reach out to me also with any questions. You have I put my email in there. So, and if you do have like the version that has the gliss in it and you want the updated one, just email me and I'll send it to you this next week. I'm happy to send you a new PDF copy of that. And otherwise, happy practicing and performing.
Awesome.
Thanks, Josh.
Have a good one, everybody.